Everywhere right now, I'm seeing the same thing. New year, new you. This is gonna be our year. Fresh start. And I don't know about you, but that feels kind of false right now. And so I don't want to give some shiny version of a New Year's reflection and pretend that everything is going to get better just because the calendar has flipped. I want to be honest because I think a lot of us are feeling this, but we're not allowed to say it out loud. Honestly, I think 2026 will probably suck too. I don't think things are just going to magically get better, and pretending that they will is actually part of the problem. Just to clarify, when I say 2026 will probably suck, I'm not talking about your year in particular. I'm talking about the state of our country, the structures and power systems that we're living under, and the harm that is just becoming normalized. I think there's something dangerous about pretending that this stuff isn't happening, because that is how we become numb, and that's how we stop paying attention. So I'm making this video because I don't want to start the year lying to myself. And if you yourself are feeling alone, scared, angry, or despondent about it all, I promise that you are not alone. I think telling the truth is how we will stay awake, and staying awake is how we will push through what is coming. Of course, all the pieces have been laid for years and we felt this coming. But I have to say that 2025 felt like the culmination of everything that's terrible about humanity. In 2025, we saw the rise of authoritarianism, we saw cruelty being rewarded, and power being consolidated in the hands of people who couldn't care less what happens to the average American. Blatant injustices are starting to become normalized. We see dehumanization happening on repeat, and vulnerable groups of society being attacked. This leaves us feeling exhausted, in grief, maybe starting to feel despondent, and angry about what is going on around us. There's this constant sense of background dread and like things just aren't right and things aren't settled. There's also a sense of moral injury, like the very fabric of our country and the values that you may have thought it had, like a country that claims to be valuing freedom and equality just clearly doesn't. And it can feel very unsettling to have that, what you may have thought to be true, shattering in front of you. So we have the worst parts of humanity being elevated and rising to center stage. At the same time that it feels like everything is going wrong, we feel powerless to do anything about it. We just have to sit there each day as we watch the country crumble around us. In the midst of this all, the cultural script about resetting and being hopeful for the new year kind of seems a bit laughable when things clearly aren't in a good place in our country and in a lot of ways in the world. And so it does seem a little bit fake that we would pretend that things are okay. And it's a bit shallow to lean into that type of positivity that just doesn't represent how things truly are, at least at a national scale. Telling ourselves it'll be fine and that this new year will make things okay again doesn't make us stronger. It just makes us more complacent. And it is possible to still have hope without denying reality as it is right now. Growing up, you would hear that common complaint from parents that video games were starting to become so violent that they worried their children would become desensitized to the violence that actually does occur in the real world. And I think this kind of argument can really be applied to what is going on right now. I've heard it referred to as outrage fatigue. Outrage fatigue is defined as the emotional exhaustion, cynicism, or apathy that results from being constantly exposed to upsetting news, injustices, or political conflict, especially amplified by social media. And I think that does explain so much of what we're experiencing right now is outrage fatigue, where you can be so easily be exposed to injustice after injustice that is happening at the hands of our government. And even just scrolling on your phone, you can see this and it's just so easy to scroll right past it. Because at this point, it doesn't even catch me off guard. I kind of expect it. It's become normalized. And so it's easy to let it fade into a background noise or to even become apathetic to it all. Because I think a lot of us use apathy as a coping mechanism because our brains don't know what to do with all this information about the cruelty that is happening, that we just kind of push it to the side because we have to carry on with our lives. If we start to dress up apathy as self-care and truly normalize what is happening, then we become like those children exposed to the violent video games, where we're seeing the suffering but not actually feeling any of it. There is danger when we start acting like this is a normal situation. There's danger when we start to disengage and feel like it is not our problem and not our world to think about. However, I think anger is a natural response to the cruelties that continue to happen in our nation. I think your anger shows that you care and that you haven't given up. Now, I'm not encouraging anger to the point of some sort of reckless rage where you're doom spiraling and starting fights with strangers in the news 24/7. But there is something to be said for a moral anger that keeps you awake. Because if you're still angry, you are still awake and alive to what matters. So, what do we do with this anger? That is the question. And what I've heard from people that I admire is that we need to stay involved. And this doesn't have to be in some huge heroic way. This can be locally. This can be in volunteering in certain ways that matter to us. This can mean just getting involved with our community. This can mean checking in with people in your life that you feel may be especially vulnerable to what's going on. This means taking care of yourself if you are being impacted by what's going on physically, mentally. Staying involved means speaking up for marginalized voices. If there's some sort of privilege that you have, stand on that ground and use it to speak up for those with less privilege who Donald Trump and MAGA are trying to push down and silence. Do whatever you can to speak up for those people and say that you will refuse to be silenced. Speak up even when it is uncomfortable to do so, because our voice is the most powerful thing that we have, and it is something that they cannot take away from us. So continue to use it and do not be shamed into being quiet. And most importantly of all, keep creating. Keep making art and playing music and writing and putting pieces of yourself out into the world, because that creation and that beauty is an act of defiance in itself, and they cannot take away what matters to you. Make times for friendships and relationships and laughter. I think humor can be such an antidote. I myself am like binge watching Jimmy Kimmel and late night television where they make a lot of fun of all the mess that's happening in our government right now. Laughing itself can be, even when things are awful, is a way to cope, and it's a way to take back some of that power and that control. So laugh as much as you can. Continue to find ways to experience joy for yourself and with people that you love, because again, beauty, laughter, creativity, those are all acts of defiance, and it's a way to hold on to the power when people are trying to take it from you. And as you know, even in the midst of what feels terrible at a national and even a global scale, we can still experience joys for ourselves and our own like milestones and growth and learning. And so keep doing that as much as you can, because life does continue. Despite it all, we have to refuse to let the cruelty steal our joy away. Because finding joy right now is not ignorant. It's an act of resistance. And like I was saying at the beginning, joy does not mean you are discarding the reality of what's happening. I think it's super important to acknowledge that, yes, 2026 is going to be a tough year full of more horrible things to come. But we can acknowledge that and at the same time defy it by finding joy ourselves, contributing locally in our community, and holding on to a bit of hope. In these moments of joy and hope, you remind yourself why this country is worth fighting for and why it's so important that we stay awake through it all and make it through to the other side. 2026 may be hard. It may be harder than 2025. But we don't face it asleep. We don't get through it by pretending. We get through it by staying awake, staying human, and staying involved. So don't give your outrage away. Don't give your voice away. And don't give up your ability to care. From here, we will keep going. And I'll see you soon.